Welcome to Done, Not Perfect, the podcast for ambitious but anxious creatives ready to overcome fear, perfectionism, and self-doubt to share their gifts and talents with the world. I'm your host, Aaron, here to help you tackle things such as overthinking, procrastination, and fear of rejection with practical tools and strategies to take action and find fulfillment. This is your space to let go and get going, because done is always better than perfect. Let's begin. Welcome to Done, Not Perfect. I am your host, Aaron, and I am very, very, very excited for today's episode. We're talking about overthinking. Yeah, we're talking about overthinking. The thing that as a creative, an artist, an entrepreneur, you hate the most about what you do. You just be all up in your headspace. You got a brilliant idea. You know what you got is dope. You can't wait to share it. You're using your talent. You're using your gift. You are stepping into your greatness, but somewhere down the line, it is hard for you to take action because you keep getting in your head about it. You are overthinking. You're thinking about what are they going to think? What are they going to say? Are they going to buy? Are they going to listen? Are they going to watch? All the things that go into your mind that majority of the time never even come to fruition. But that's what happens when you're an overthinker, right? You always go to worst case scenario. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Overthinking. What is it? My personal stories with overthinking, and how can we overcome overthinking so we can start sharing our art? But before we get into it, I want to say thank you so much for listening to Done, Not Perfect. There's a lot of new listeners now. So I want to say thank you to all of the new listeners, the people that have supported the podcast from the third quarter podcast to the New Normal show until now, all the OGs. I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. So if you haven't done so yet, to subscribe to the podcast, like the podcast, share the podcast, and leave a kind review, right? Do all the things because your investment into the podcast is to subscribe and to rate and review, because that is what allows the podcast to be shown and seen to people that need us, but they don't know that we exist just yet. So I want to thank you for your support and your participation in the podcast. I am not going to cut that out because we are done, not perfect. So I want to say thank you for that. Now let's get into the episode. Overthinking. What is overthinking? Overthinking is exactly how it sounds. You're thinking entirely too much. You are thinking, but you're overdoing it. You are contemplating results, and really what you're doing is that you're putting obstacles in the way that just don't need to be there. You are putting things in the equation that just don't need to be there. You are thinking about worst case scenarios. You are thinking about possibilities. You are thinking about all these different synapses that really kind of what it is. If I'm being honest, and I'll speak for myself here. When I look at the times that I was overthinking, a lot of it came down to the fact that I wasn't 100% sold on not just what I wanted to do, but who I was in the first place. So subconsciously, my overthinking really was to sabotage myself, to give myself built-in excuses on why I shouldn't do what my heart is telling me to do. Because when you start thinking about all these things that are happening in your mind, right? You're coming up with all these worst case scenarios. You're coming up with all these ideas. You're coming up with all these possibilities that we know aren't going to happen, but they start to become built-in excuses and barriers that give us a way out because we're scared. Bottom line is, when you're overthinking, you're scared, right? When you are trying to be perfect, and when you're saying to yourself, if it's not flawless, then I'm not going to share it. If it's not perfect, I'm not going to tell anyone about it. If my voice doesn't sound as perfect as it can, if these words don't sound as perfectly as they can, if my art doesn't look flawless, I'm not going to show anyone what I do. If this is what you're saying, really what you're doing is you're self-sabotaging your potential because you're afraid. whether it's a fear of failure, a fear of rejection, a fear of being seen. It's a fear of, are you good enough? What happens if it works? Because there's a lot of us out there that are not afraid to fail, but they're actually afraid to succeed. Because now, if you do put out your art and it's lit and people are all over it and they want more of it, now there's an expectation to deliver on a consistent basis. So there's that too. Maybe you have a fear of being judged. Maybe you don't want people to pick apart your art, which is understandable. Your art is personal. It's spiritual to you. It's a thing that you hold near and dear to your heart. So I can understand that too. But the bottom line is the brass tacks. None of that shit should matter. It can be a factor. You could say that these things are in my head, but that doesn't mean that it should stop you from taking action. So really what we're coming down to is a part of getting comfortable with sharing your art, building the business, creating, is acknowledging that these thoughts exist. Because I think where some of us get it wrong is we have these thoughts and ideas and we're trying to stop having these thoughts and ideas, right? I got to stop thinking negative. I got to stop thinking about worst case scenario. And it's like, if you're someone that meditates, right? So I meditate. Yes, I'm a believer. I still meditate. I pray, but I do put myself in a position where I'm just quiet. And that's what meditation is for me. It's a practice of being quiet and being still. But the interesting part about when you're meditating is it doesn't stop the negative or the worst case scenario thoughts from happening. It strengthens the ability to be still within the discomfort. Because really what meditation is, it's stretching for your mind. It's stretching for your spirit. And here's what I mean. If you are working out, most of the time you probably hate to stretch. One, it takes a long time. And two, it's very uncomfortable, especially if you're not flexible. If you're very tight and you're stiff, you are probably going to hate stretching, just like meditation. If you're someone that is an overthinker, you're chronically stressed, you have anxious thoughts and anxious feelings, meditating and being still is going to be a challenge for you because it's uncomfortable and it feels like it takes a long time. But you got to remember, when you're not flexible, when you're stiff, when you're very tight, it's very important to think from the perspective of down the road when you're getting better. Because if you're looking at stretching as if I'm never going to get flexible, I'm always going to be stiff, I'm always going to be sore, I'm always going to feel this way, yes, it's going to be very challenging for you to overcome and to persevere through that because you're looking at it through the lens of where you are right now. You have to look at it from where the lens of where you desire to be later. And it's the same thing with overthinking. If you're looking at it from the position that you are a chronic overthinker, odds are it's going to be very difficult for you to actually take action because you're only looking at it through the lens of where you are right now. But if you put yourself in the position of your potential of where you are down the road, it'll get easier and easier for you to share your work because you're acknowledging the fact that right now I'm an overthinker. Right now, I have a fear of rejection or failure or decision paralysis. You have these things right now, but you know that through the consistency of you doing it anyway, in the future, you're not going to have this issue as much as you have it right now. So a part of sharing and creating and building things is you have to be content with where you're at while not accepting that this is where you're always going to be. It's being content without acceptance, meaning, yes, I am content that right now I am an overthinker. This is where I'm at right now. I have to be content in this space, right? I have to be faithful over a few before a ruler over many. However, I am not going to accept the fact that this is how my story is always going to be. And when you look at things from that perspective, it makes things a lot easier, right? So it's really a mindset shift. It's a mindset shift that you and I have to have, that when you're an overthinker, right, the first thing you have to do is you have to remove the label that you are an overthinker. Because when you're saying I'm an overthinker, You're making a statement. You're making a declaration. You're putting a period or an exclamation point at the end of that. What you want to do is you want to say, hey, I'm not an overthinker. I just so happen to be thinking a little too much. And here's what that does. Instead of saying I'm an overthinker, you're saying I'm thinking a little too much. I'm anxious about what this could possibly bring to me. And so when you're addressing the feeling, you're also simultaneously not giving yourself the identity. So when you're saying I have writer's block, or I'm an overthinker, or I don't like this, or I'm this, I'm a procrastinator, you're wearing these labels, and these labels are slowly bleeding into your DNA and now have become and shaped your identity. So when you say I'm a procrastinator, or when you say I'm an overthinker, you are slowly going to start to behave the way of an overthinker behaves, because it's becoming your identity. If you are someone that is overweight and you want to lose weight, you cannot claim I'm overweight, I'm obese. You have to change your language, because if you're saying you're overweight and you do look overweight and you are overweight, you are going to start to behave the way an overweight person behaves. So instead of saying you're overweight, say, I'm in the process of being my best self physically. You're going to slowly start to make decisions that match that identity. So when it comes to overthinking, this is really just a mindset shift. And I want to be very clear when I say just a mindset shift, because I want to be respectful that I know personally that overthinking is a very tough thing to do. When I first started creating content on social media with the intention of creating content, it was very difficult for me to hit post, because I didn't expect my social media to take off. When my TikTok took off in 2020, I mean, I didn't want to have a social media. I didn't care to have a lot of followers. I didn't care about that, but it just happened. And so now I'm in a position that I didn't ask for, that now I feel an obligation to continue to deliver day in and day out. So now I have, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands and millions of people watching my content. Now I'm thinking about how I look. So now the things that I never thought about, which was lighting and angles and am I looking in the camera right? Now these things are starting to bleed into my thoughts. Now I'm looking at everyone else that has big followings. What are they doing differently? How do they sound? How do they talk? What do they look like? And now I'm comparing myself. And so now the things that I was doing organically for the sake of doing it now has become an expectation. I'm now looking at it from a different lens. And that could be beneficial, and that also can be detrimental, because now I'm treating it as a responsibility and a business, not just I'm doing this because I enjoy making content. But the downside to that is now I'm also way too much in my head, where if I flub a word, or if I stammer, or if the music isn't right, or if the lighting isn't right, or if I feel like I'm not smiling enough, I'm going to redo it, or I'm not going to post it. Or if the video doesn't get as many views or likes after the first hour like the last one did, I'm going to take it down and upload it at a different time. Like, you just start really just get in your head about things that you don't need to get in your head about. So overthinking is really about a mindset shift. It's understanding that it's okay to acknowledge the fact that you are thinking too much and it's causing anxious feelings. But you have to acknowledge that that's what's going on. And acting like it's not, and saying, I need to stop thinking too much. I need to stop being anxious. I need to stop overthinking. I need to do this. I need to do that. It's just going to cause you to continue to do that, because you're not removing the label. You're not an overthinker. You're not you're not that person. You're just someone that is very anxious about the end results. You're anxious. And that's why this podcast is for ambitious but anxious creatives. Anxious but ambitious creatives. People who are super creative and have incredible ideas and incredible businesses that they want to put out, but you're anxious about it. Notice I said this isn't a podcast about ambitious creators that have anxiety. The label is ambitious, but you're anxious. You don't have anxiety, but you're anxious. And you're anxious because there is a fear of failure or judgment or decision paralysis, or maybe you struggle with perfectionism. That stuff's real. But if you really want to be the creator that you know that you can be, and I believe you can be, you have to remove the label. You're not an overthinker. Your thoughts are just creating anxious feelings. And your brain is trying to protect you because the place that your art can take you is to a place that you've never been before. It's a place that no one in your family has been to. It's a place that no one in your friendship circle has been to. No one in your church has gone through. No one in your family can relate to. So it's hard to feel some type of security if you don't have a reference point of where you're headed. So it makes complete sense that you're anxious about certain things because you've never been there before. It's the fear of the unknown. You don't have a fear of failure. You're anxious about the unknown. You might have a 9-to-5 that takes care of all of your needs and you're good. But you know when you clock out and you go home, you're not fulfilled. There's something else out there for you to do, and you know exactly what that is. But guess what? This eventually is going to lead you to leaving something that is secure, which is your 9-to-5. And you mean to tell me that all of your needs have been taken care of? You've been blessed to be able to have a job that pays you well, to take care of you and your family. And now all of a sudden you have these feelings that is making you feel like, yo, this might be something for me, but you mean to tell me I got to leave something that's been so good to me to step into something that I have no idea where this is taking me? Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying, which is exactly why it makes complete sense why you have anxious feelings about thinking about where this could potentially go. So overthinking is a part of the process because a lot of you that are listening to this right now, but more specifically you that's listening, I'm talking to you, you're wanting to go to a place that you have never been. I remember one time I went to a party in college. I was like a junior or senior, and we went to this party, and we were already going into enemy territory. All right, we were in Saginaw, and we weren't from Saginaw, and we were going to a party that was thrown by Saginaw people, and we were already going into enemy territory. So going into this, I was already in my head thinking about all the worst case scenarios. Who am I going with? Do they have my back? You know, and I'm one of the bigger guys there, so I'm like, I'm going to be the first one in line to throw down, but I'm also probably going to be the first target too. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, I'm thinking about all the worst case scenarios, and then we get there, I'm eyeing everybody. I'm looking at people who are looking at me. So like, I'm already assuming that something is going down. This whole time we're there for 2 hours or so, I'm in my head thinking about worst case scenarios because I'm in an area that I've never been before, surrounded by people that I do not know. And I'm with people from college that are my boys, but like I've known y'all for 2 years. You know what I'm saying? Like if it goes down, I don't know if you got my best interest, just like you don't know if I have yours. But fast forward, I had one of the best times ever at this party, you know? But initially going into it, I was thinking like crazy because I'd never been there before. So a part of overthinking is acknowledging the fact that your brain is trying to protect you from a scenario that you've never experienced. Because remember, your brain does not know the difference between fantasy and reality. It just wants to protect you. That's it. So if you're going into something and embarking in something that's unfamiliar, your brain wants to protect you from that. And one of the ways it does that is by going with worst case scenario. What if it doesn't work out? What if people don't like it? What if it's whack? What if no one listens or watches or buys? What if no one cares? What if people are picking it apart? This sucks. Your voice sucks. Your song sucks. What if? And by the way, might I submit to you that if you don't have anybody criticizing you, if you don't have anybody not liking your stuff, if you don't have anyone upset at you, if you don't have anyone that's pissed because you exist, I want to submit to you that you're not doing life right. Like if you're going through life trying to get everyone to agree with you, to like you, to support you, to buy your stuff, to listen to your music, to read your book, I don't think that's a sustainable way of living, wanting everyone to like and accept what you do. A part of art is also understanding that your art is not for everyone. A part of starting a business is also understanding that your business is not for everyone. A part of creating is understanding that what you create is not for everyone. If you try to be for everyone, you ultimately become somebody for nobody. So stop overthinking trying to make everyone accept what you do. Go into your creativity knowing that a part of creating art is also eliminating who you're not for. Shoot, that was a bar. I didn't even plan on saying that. It just flew out of me. The Holy Spirit was like, I need you to say this. A part of creating your art is to also starting to pinpoint who you're for and who you're not for. When you start to create more consistently, you're going to start to eliminate the people that are not going to be for you, which is great because now you know who to make your art for, who your sheep are. When you start to create, your sheep are going to know your voice, or they're going to know your art. They're going to know your book. They're going to know your podcast or your videos. When you start to show up, the people that are for you are going to come find you. Your job is not to find who your people are. Your job is to show up so the people that are for you can come find you. You don't have to create demand. You don't have to create an audience. You don't have to create a community. You don't have to create buyers. You don't have to create that. You have to show up. The demand is already there. They're just waiting for you to provide the solution. The problem already exists. A part of art is realizing that no matter if you're a singer, if you're an athlete, if you're a builder, if you're a teacher, no matter what you do, if you're a podcast host, no matter what, your art is solving someone else's problem. Now you might be saying, well, Ace, like I'm a personal trainer, or I don't do music, I don't act, I don't write, I don't do none of this. You're still an artist, you still create. As long as you are born in the image of likeness of God, you are a creator by nature. It is your nature to create. If you're a teacher, that classroom is your canvas, and how you teach is your art form. Every student is not going to resonate with you. Every teacher is not going to agree with your methods. Every parent is not going to understand what you do. And that's okay. But maybe by you taking a chance on your teaching style will reveal to you if the school that you're in is the school that's for you. Maybe it will show you that, hey, this school is not going to help cultivate or support your ways, but because you took a chance on yourself, it now reveals that. So the school that is best suited for someone like you will show up because you did. Your art is a relationship between you and the people that you are called to serve. It's a relationship. When people say there's no good men, there's no good women out there. No, they exist. You just haven't shown up yet. And because you haven't shown up as a better version of yourself, the quality of person that you want doesn't know you exist yet. Oh, okay. This is turning into a sermon. But the point that I'm making is the more that you show up despite how you feel, the more the people that are for your art are going to come find you. You don't have to find the people. You have to show up so they can come find you. The audience already exists. The problems are already out there. The kind of humor that you provide in your comedy, those people that like that humor already exist. The kind of workout programs that you create, those clients that have those needs and want those methods already exist. The people that want to listen to your kind of podcast and your material and likes the way that you speak, as imperfect or perfect as you speak, that audience already exists. The problem is the champion hasn't shown up yet, and that's you. So if you're listening to this and overthinking is something that you struggle with, you're going to have to show up anyway. Because the only way that your art can do what it's designed to do, it requires you to show up first. Don't let overthinking be the thing that stops you from being who you're supposed to be by your nature. Let it be an indicator that you're headed in the right direction. Because I'm going to close with this. If you are not headed where you were supposed to be going, you would not be feeling how you're feeling. What am I saying? When you're choosing to settle and when you're choosing to be mediocre, you don't have thoughts of overthinking. You don't have fear of failure. You don't have fear of rejection. You don't have fear of perfectionism because you've chosen to be mediocre and you have chosen to settle. The only time you have these feelings and these thoughts is when you're making a decision and you're getting closer and closer to taking back your personal power. Because I'm going to say it once and I'm going to say it again. Creating is spiritual. It's not physical. It is not emotional. It is not mental. It is spiritual. When you are made in the image and likeness of God, and He is the ultimate creator, that means it is your nature to be creative, which means creating is a spiritual assignment. It is your DNA. So if creating and being an artist and building things is spiritual, that means it's also going to be prime for a spiritual attack. Because there is another force. The enemy does not want you to step into your personal power because he knows how powerful it is once you take ownership of it. So he's going to make you overthink. He's going to plant these thoughts in your head. He's going to have you thinking worst case scenario because he does not want you, not because he doesn't want you to create. He doesn't want you to impact who your creativity is designed to serve. Because if you don't step into your destiny, you could potentially prevent someone else from doing it too because you're not being their leader. You're not serving the audience that is assigned to you. I promise you this, and I'm going to say this in closing. The moment you recognize that creating is a spiritual endeavor, the more it is going to increase your motivation and your inspiration to start creating and getting done with it and stop trying to be perfect, because you know that no matter how you sound, no matter how you look, no matter what you do, it is always for someone. So while you're debating and you're overthinking how you sound, how you look, the person and the people that are for you are continually having to wait. They do not care how perfect your beats are. They do not care if you're hitting every note properly and correctly. They don't care about your grammar. They don't care about, is your form correct? All they care about is you showing up. And the more that you allow overthinking to prevent you from showing up, the more the people that are for you are going to have to continue to sit in purgatory until someone else comes in and creates the thing that you were supposed to be doing. Don't let the people that were assigned to you have to go to someone else. So stop it, create it, send it, repeat. I hope this episode served you and helped you. I want to thank you so much for listening. This is such a joy to do, and it's incredible to see just in the short period of time we've been doing Done Not Perfect, what it's done for many of you guys. If you have any questions, please reach out to me on Instagram at Aaron Simpson Official or Done Not Perfect Podcast. I'm going to be doing Q&As in the future. Make sure to subscribe and leave a kind review on Spotify or Apple, wherever you get your podcast. And I will see you next week on Done Not Perfect. Be safe, be blessed. And remember, done is always better than perfect. See you next time.